Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. I haven't uploaded it in a little while and I'm sorry, I completely lost my voice. You can still kind of probably hear a little bit that I'm still a little bit ill, but patch point 9.24 has finally arrived and it's a fairly big one. Hopefully my voice is going to hold out for this one, but we've got some huge buffs and nerfs plus the much awaited champion Aphelios. We're going to cover that champion in a video this week. It's way too big and complicated to go over in this one, but the first thing is the new Diana is released here as well. Her passive, her E and her ultimate are all going to be changed. So passive to start with, you gain 10 to 40% attack speed based on your level. Casting an ability triples that effect for 3 seconds, and every third strike cleaves nearby enemies for a bunch of damage. It's 20 to 250 plus 40% of your AP. Your W is still going to be a shield, still the same idea, but the cooldown is up now, 15 to 9 seconds from 10 at every rank, and the total shield is lower. The damage ratio is lower, but the shield now has a bonus health ratio itself. The biggest part about this is that her E and ultimate are swapping around, so her dash is now on her E. You dash to a target and that resets as well if hit by your Q. It's got a 22 to 14 second cooldown. It's a 40 to 60 mana cost, 40 to 120 damage, and 40% of your AP ratio. Her ultimate is a similar idea to her E, but with some added stuff as well. So it pulls in nearby enemies for 2 seconds. It's got 100 to 80 second cooldown, 100 mana cost, a 40 to 60% slow, and there's a new part as well, and this is completely new, that if she pulls in one or more enemy champions, after 1 second, she does a bunch more damage around her, and that damage is increased based on the number of targets pulled in. Basically, Diana is now going to get access to a jump at level 2 or 3, which is going to be pretty fun if you're laning against her. Her passive is a much more updated and useful version. Her wave clear is probably going to be a bit better in theory, and it's going to open up a bit more build options as well. Like running attack speed is probably going to be a bit better. The idea of the champion is the same, which is actually really cool, but now she has a really big teamfight ultimate that is like half useful, pulling everybody in, and half of it is damage. Her ultimate is kind of nuts as well though, and this is a really big part because if you hit everybody in a team fight, it can be brutal with the extra damage now, and it moves it away from being a single target damage thing just into a team-wide damage. Oh, and also as well, she'll most likely be a really good jungler now with her new passive and shield changes, so definitely try her out in the jungle and keep an eye out. Next up, we kind of have to talk about Conqueror. The duration has been reduced from 8 seconds to 6 seconds, and the ranged champion heal has been halved, pretty much halved, 8% now instead of 15%. The new Conqueror is really good on a lot of different champions, but especially mages start to abuse it way more, right? And that's kind of the issue. So ranged champions are going to be mages, and they use a poke it, they stack up the adaptive force, and there's no real reason to like worry about it resetting as well, but now it's going to be kind of harder to do that. The duration nerf is going to hit both like melee and ranged, but it's not as big for melee champions, or it shouldn't be unless they somehow get kited around for 6 seconds during a fight or try and duck out and keep it active in lane. You'll have to manage it a bit better, but that's kind of the only part about it really. The healing is the same for them, but for stuff like Rise or Cassiopeia, they get hit harder with this, and it might honestly make people go back to other keystones. The healing was like a really big draw, right? About opting in for Conqueror rather than something else. So these guys will be worse on the new patch. Another really big change we have is to Yuumi. So your passive is going to restore mana again. Your Q cost will be increased, damage decreased. Yuumi no longer teleports with an anchor as well. So if you're attached, you're not going to TP with that person. Your E now grants attack speed. It no longer stacks your charges, but it costs more as well. There is more to it as well, which we're going to dive into. But this is actually the first time I think I've ever seen Riot tell people to take a specific keystone. They actually say that part of a reason why the win rate is like kind of bad on Yuumi is that people are taking Comet, and that's basically inting. And it's much, much worse than Airy. As I said though, this is basically a mini rework for Yuumi. It's going to change like how you play with her. It's going to change how you play her as well. And the biggest change actually might just be that you can no longer TP with her attached ally. One of the best parts about her really is you get access to more summoner spells, right? Like you take TP on the AD carry and you take Ignite and Heal normally on a Yuumi. You might still be doing that afterwards, but it means that you have to walk to lane with your incredibly slow movement speed, not buying boots. So it might not actually work that way anymore, and we'll have to shift that around. Having your passive give you mana regen as well is also really big, right? It encourages you to kind of detach and play a tiny bit more aggressive, but this comes hand in hand with the massive cost increase on the heal and it being more dangerous. So your attach actually has a channel time now, and if you're stopped as well, it goes on a 5-second cooldown. So if you mess that up, you're pretty much as good as dead. Like you can't move for 5 seconds. The Q doesn't last as long either. It does this damage. It even costs more mana, but when you're attached, you're giving more stats over, and you now give attack speed as well. It's actually a pretty good steroid. Like the attack speed is a fair amount. It brings a whole new potential to her though as well. We might start seeing stuff like Cogmore and Twitch like used with her just because of that. It's basically another version of Lulu, just a little bit different, but it's one that you can't really kill because she's attached on the AD. In my opinion, it really fuels that idea that Yuumi is paired with a hyper carry to let them just pop off. Probably actually going to be a bit worse early game, but better later. We actually have a fair amount of support changes. So a Braum is our next one. It's pretty cool actually. So base health per level and health regen increased. Your W has been shuffled around a bit. So the cooldown decrease, costs flatten, resistance ratios to ally and self flatten, and your ultimate does more damage later, and the knock up now lasts longer. The new support items didn't really work that well with Braum, like AD, AP, not really that useful, right? But the W change is kind of ridiculous. It is a 36% increase resistances at all levels for him now. It's going to be super strong, probably the entire game, but definitely later. They did try and balance it out by reducing the ally resistance, but the problem is the longer Braum is alive, the longer your team is alive, so that kind of balances itself, I think. His ultimate change seems a bit confusing, but basically the knockup now scales with the distance from Braum and doesn't just knock up everybody around him like really close. It also means that no matter where you hit that first champion with the ultimate, it will knock up for longer than 0.25 seconds if you hit them like a little bit of a distance away. It actually makes it more of like a long range engage tool rather than having to jump in front of them if you really wanted to feel that effect. The changes honestly seem really good. They seem like they should make him better, even actually just from the lane phase where it's not supposed to be that strong. The other support we have getting nerfed is Senna, but this is kind of aimed at AD carry Senna as well, so it's not just the support, and if anything, actually it might buff the support. So your passive rates are going to drop less often on minions that Senna kills and no longer drop on champion clones. Your Q damage and W root duration decrease and your ultimate damage ratio increase. These nerfs definitely focus more on the like AD carry potential. Her passive has really been nerfed to the ground for that, so you don't get as many souls from farming anymore at all. The Q nerf is a flat 10 and it's 10% AD ratio as well. So again, if you have more items, that is going to be more of a problem, something that support, especially like the sensor version, isn't really going to care much about at all. As I said, it actually can be a buff as well to support, because her ultimate, the AP ratio is going up 10%. So at least for the damage part of that, and if you build sensor and Athenes and stuff, that is actually going to be better. Even your W root is going to even out eventually, but it's 0.2 seconds less early. So it's not massive, but it might stop her being quite as good right now, especially in lane phase. I reckon we're going to see less of her as an AD carry option. Not that we see it all the time anyway, but probably less AD builds as support. Support in general will be alright though, and I would expect like sensor and Athenes to be probably the best build now. Let's move on to some more Conqueror stuff. So we have the Conqueror nerf, right? But we're going to go on to some abusing mages getting nerfed as well. So this is kind of like a double hit for all of these. First up, we have Akali, a bit of a weird one actually to start with. So her Q, they've removed the hitbox that actually was a little bit behind her. Also, her rank 5 minion and monster damage is now going to be a 25% bonus magic damage instead of 33%, so that's going to be worse. It is mostly aimed at pro play. I don't think many people even knew that they had a hitbox behind Akali, like very slightly, so you could kind of abuse it to push and to wave clear a bit faster, but not many people really knew. The main point of removing that hitbox though is to reduce the overall wave clear, along with a % damage nerf as well. It means more time clearing, less time roaming, and less time fighting. Another mage that's been a bit of an issue in preseason so far is Kassadin, right? So his Q cooldown now scales from 9 seconds, it's going to be 11 to 9 instead, and the W mana restore nerfed from 4 to 8% to 4 to 6%. Kassadin is so good right now because he scales into the game. Normally with Rod of Ages and Seraphs as well, right? He becomes a tanky, super mobile assassin. These nerfs basically mean that it's harder for him to poke early, and with his W nerf as well, it also means that it's less rewarding if he goes for the really big trades. Even though like a 2% decrease doesn't sound like a lot, it's actually 5 times as much against champions, so that is a really big part. It's kind of more for late game when you've stacked up your ulti and you're trying to like go through the entire team basically and like keep resetting over, and you really need that mana to do it. It probably isn't going to be a massive change because Kassadin can use Fleet for work, not just Conqueror, but early is going to be a bit weaker with the Q nerf and later a bit weaker with the mana refund nerf. One of the biggest mages abusing Conqueror that isn't Cassiopeia is Ryze. So his Q base damage has been lowered. It's going to be 15 less at every single rank. Ryze used to be like Kassadin where he scaled and he popped off more at higher ranks, but not so much recently. Like he's played all the time. He's always been really hard to balance, right? Which is why we're on like the 12th rework or something like that. He's either super strong or super weak, but this patch he has definitely been scraping through everybody thanks to Conqueror. It isn't actually just that, like his wave clear is so good, and that is why he can genuinely win lane now, which is a bit of an issue. He can poke people and he can wave clear at the same time with the bounce system, which makes it really hard to ever fight him or to step up to the wave and try to even trade. I think with the Conqueror change and also with this change as well, Ryze would definitely fall down a tier, or he at least should do, because it is a kind of a double nerf and both of them are relatively big. Let's move on to some other stuff before we end this video. So Muumu's Q cooldown is going to be now 10 to 8 instead of 12 to 8. One of the problems right now for Muumu is just with the new jungle, like he doesn't really fit. It rewards farmers, it rewards people who can gank as well, and Muumu doesn't really do either of those that well. This change might not seem like much, but 2 seconds is a fair amount early game, and it might speed up your clear or like going camp to camp a little bit, but it's not going to be as punishing if you miss it, or you're actually going to do a bit more in fights. Normally max is seconds, so you'll really feel it about like the level 12, 13 mark, honestly, up until that point. So it's for the early few fights, right? You're going to notice the crowd control being up again sooner, and hopefully it makes you just a bit more useful. There is actually a very similar change to Rammus as well. His health growth is going to be increased, but his taunt cooldown, it used to be 12 at every single rank. It's now going to be 12 down to 10, scaling with that rank. The health growth is obviously like pretty decent. As you get later, it's not going to be a bad thing, is it? But it's making him more useful when you're actually in fights with the taunt cooldown. Some people actually max this out first, and if you do that, they will get the biggest boost in power. Remember, when you max it as well, you actually taunt it for longer. So it's a 2.25 second taunt at rank 5, and then you wait and you taunt again. If you don't max it first, you normally max it second, so mid-game team fights you'll be able to have a bit more of an impact. I don't think like Rammus is that bad at the moment if he gets rolling, but he can't really farm well, and that definitely blows. There is one more champion that we should probably cover before we end this video. So the TLDR for Garen nerfs is that you need more attack speed for more spins, but there's less scaling damage now as well, and they don't do as much. Garen has been dominating top lane for a while now, especially with the new Conqueror, right? Which makes him heal for a stupid amount, but also you stack it insanely fast with your spin anyway, so it's kind of doubly as bad, or doubly as good for him. With the Conqueror nerf, that's going to set him back already, but this is really aimed at carry Garen build. So if you build tank anyway, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but if you do that, then you won't have to worry about this. This is mainly for like PD. Basically, if you had like 100% bonus attack speed throughout the game, before you would get 5 more spins, and now you get 4, and each of those spins do less damage, so it's kind of a double kick in the nuts. He's probably going to fall down a bit after this, especially with the damage builds, and I honestly don't think tank is that good right now anyway, so you'll probably see like some more Trinity Force anyway, but Trinity Force in a Phantom Dancer is definitely going to be worse. Now, Omni Stone is also a little bit smarter this patch, giving you the right keystone at the right time. So it's not really found a really good place in the meta. Like, it's a cool idea, right? But nobody really used it. So basically, it's going to try and guess what keystone is best for you at the given time. So if you're away from people, it's going to try and give you Predator more. If they're low, it will try and give you Dark Harvest or Halo Blades if you're building attack speed or AD. If you and your enemy are high health, it will try and give you Conqueror, increase of your melee as well. Fleet Footwork if you're low on health and below level 9. Glacial if you have actually glacial items off cooldown. And Airy if you're a healing and shielding champion near a low ally that is in combat. The changes aren't going to make the keystone suddenly really good, but it should make it more useful, right? So it's not completely random, and actually you're just having kind of the best of every little situation. I guess that's the idea. I think we're going to wrap up the video there. There are a couple of extra things like Sivir and Karma are both getting very small buffs, but probably not going to affect the meta very much. And like Lux's VFX is getting updated as well, like a visual rework. So it should be a little bit easier and better to play with. Thanks for watching the video until the very end though. I'm really sorry about my voice. It's not that great right now, but it's improving slowly over time. Expect more videos this week though, which is really cool, hopefully. And yeah, thank you for watching until the very end. And for now, I will leave you with the Robots.